Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Ann Sinopoli, the Outreach Librarian here at the Eastham Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to what promises to be an informative program on fraud protection. Just a quick housekeeping detail before I go any further. For anyone new to our building, if there are any out-of-towners who haven't visited us before, restrooms are along this hallway out here. There was at least one person who identified themselves as new to our building, and after the program, if anyone would like a tour of the building, I am here and I'd be happy to show you around. Well, we are very fortunate to have an expert panel of presenters with us today, and my sincere thanks to Officer Rick Pellegrino, who approached me about having such a program and offered to present. Great idea and timely. And joining Officer Rick today, we have two financial experts from Cape Cod 5. We have Taryn Wilson and Elaine Mason. And following their presentations, there'll be time for you to share and ask any questions. We'll have a Q&A session. This program this afternoon is being recorded by our Media Services Coordinator for possible future airing on our local access channel, our local access station, channel 18. And as always, our thanks to the Friends of the Eastham Library for their continued support of all the programming we do here. So I will turn the program over to Taryn and Elaine, who will begin, and then Officer Rick will follow with his presentation.
So what I do at the 5 is I'm the head of fraud prevention. So we see scams every day. We both prevent them, and then we help our customers mitigate the impacts if, unfortunately, they have fallen victim to a scam. Elaine is our information security officer. So she's the one that's the technical expert. And so what Elaine is going to share with you in a little bit is really how to make sure all of your computer systems and your phones and any way that you're really accessing the internet is as secure as it can be. These are a couple of slides from a recent study, and there are some wonderful resources that I will direct you to at the end of the presentation so you can stay informed on all the latest information. But here, what we really wanted to highlight is just how big a problem it is. I think we all know, but sometimes when you put some dollar figures to it, it really brings it home. So this information is for calendar year 2021, and victims of imposter scams. What do I mean by an imposter scam? This is basically you get a call and it sounds like it's from your bank, or it's from your utility company, or it's the IRS, or it's the local police department that says, you have to do something. You have to give your online banking credentials, or you have to give your money or personal information in order for them to help you out of the situation, right? They play on that sense of urgency when they're on the phone. That's what we're really calling an imposter scam. And it costs victims over $43 billion in 2021. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to highlight for you is on the bottom right here, and we often hear stories of people being victimized, those that have maybe a little bit more accumulation of wealth, but we're really seeing an uptick in fraudsters targeting younger people. So for those of you that have children and grandchildren in your lives, they're also prone to scammers because maybe they're a little more naive, right? They don't have as much life experience. They're more willing to trust people. And so it's actually the 20 to 29 age group that is the #1 targeted audience that we're hearing about in our customer portfolio as well as nationwide if you look at some of the statistics. And typically those scams are introduced through social media, right? Because the younger generation really, that's how they communicate. They're communicating on their phones or online or their mobile devices. And so that is how fraudsters introduce themselves to our younger people through Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter, all of these social media platforms. They will oftentimes offer free money to this younger group, saying, I'd like to, I have an inheritance, I'm independently wealthy, I'd like to share that with you, get you up on your feet. And of course, our younger people say, free money. Nothing is free, right? I think we've all learned that in this room. But scammers are age agnostic, and I guess that's the story we want to share with you. So here are the top scams impacting our customers, and again, our community as a whole. So the #1 reported scam we get are the tech support scams. So this is where you're browsing online, you're reading a newspaper, whatever you might be doing on your computer, and there's a pop-up and it says, warning, warning, virus. Well, of course, that's going to make us a little bit nervous, right? We don't want a virus on our computer. And there'll generally be a phone number on that pop-up, and it says, please call this phone number so that our tech support can help you remediate. Well, of course, once you call that phone number, what they'll convince people to do is allow them access into their computer or their machine, okay? They find their way into their online banking often. And one of their prime scams is, they'll say, actually it could be a refund scam. So you could even get a call saying you paid for antivirus, right? We all want antivirus on our computers. But the company that is offering this antivirus is going out of business, and we're giving you a refund. So they will log into your online banking, and it will look like they've made a deposit to one of your accounts, but in fact what they've done is they've actually just transferred money from one account to the other. And then they'll ask you to send back any sort of overpayment. So that's one example of a scam. Or in the case of the virus scam that I had started to reference, they'll ask you for maybe $500, and then they'll ask you for $1,000, or they'll just keep upping the ante, but they have control of your machine now. So you're going to pay anything in order to get your machine released. So if you ever do find yourself, or you hear of a friend or family member that has allowed access to their machine, the first thing to do is actually, if it's plugged in, unplug it from the wall. I know that sounds very simplistic, but that's the first thing you want to do. You don't want to access anything on that machine. You want to take it to a Best Buy for the Geek Squad or some other reputable company so they can take a look at that machine and see if there's any malware. And so malware is what the fraudsters put on the machine in order to get your information. You also want to call your bank immediately, because we can lock down your accounts so that no one can get access to your accounts while you take these steps to remediate your computer. So that's the first one that we see all the time. For 2021, we had over 200 of these reports. So it's a big problem. Imposter phone calls. So again, this is what we also call spoofing, if you've heard that term too. So that's a phone call. The phone number that comes in might look like it's legitimately belonging to the entity that's calling. So it could look like it's the Cape Cod 5 Service Center, right? Because they know our phone number. It's very inexpensive for these fraudsters to have an application that can hide the real phone number and look like it is our phone number, or the utility company, or a person or business that you trust, okay? So the best thing I would say is if you're not expecting that phone call and the person on the other end of the line is asking you to do something, again, they're asking for your personal information, your money, your bank account information, hang up and use the phone number that you already know. Maybe you can go to the website, say if it's for Cape Cod 5, call that phone number, and we'll most likely tell you that that was fraud. Okay, so call spoofing is rampant. Seasonal scams, of course, we're going into the holiday season, and fraudsters will take advantage of that. The most prominent scam we hear around the holidays are what we call courier scams. So UPS, FedEx, USPS, we all get packages in the mail, or maybe we're purchasing things and sending them off to family, friends, and loved ones. So what the fraudsters do is they'll send an email that it looks like it's from one of these couriers, and it'll have a hyperlink. So this is where we start talking, and Elaine's going to go into more detail about phishing emails. Is everyone familiar with that term? Please raise your hand if you've heard of phishing email. Okay.
I don't know what it is.
But you've heard of the term. Okay, so let me tell you what it is. So we're talking about phishing with a PH. This is where an email will come in. Again, it often looks like it's from someone in your list of contacts. So it's a friend, a daughter, a granddaughter, whomever it may be, or it could be, again, a business that you trust, your bank, your utility company, Comcast, whatever it may be. And in the email, there's either an attachment or there's a hyperlink. Does everyone know what a hyperlink is? Okay, so a hyperlink is something that's going to take you to a website. So it typically begins with HTTP //. Does that sound familiar? And if you click on it, it will take you to a website. Well, what these fraudsters do in these phishing emails is that hyperlink will actually install malware on your machine, or it will take you to a website where the fraudster can collect information, right? So the bottom line is when you get an email, even if it looks like from someone that you know and trust, if you aren't expecting it, don't act on it, right? Either delete it or call the person or company that it supposedly is coming from and validate whether or not that was a legitimate email, okay? That is the number one way fraud is perpetuated today, is through phishing emails, okay? So same thing with humanitarian scams. Anytime we have a hurricane or a natural disaster or there's some other event that plays on our human sympathies and we want to donate and do a good thing by a certain charity, fraudsters will try to perpetuate fraud by saying that they have, a charity that's going to benefit that affected group. So anytime that you might have a charity or other group you want to donate to, please go to a reputable charity site like Navigator Watch or Charity Watch, and they will tell you exactly how to legitimately donate. Please don't respond to a phone call or an email, again, because fraudsters know they might be able to get some of your hard-earned money. And then the overpayment and online sales scams. We see this too, where maybe someone is selling a car or selling a refrigerator on eBay or one of those other platforms. They're contacted by a fraudster. The fraudster says they want to buy that item. They will send them a check in the mail for more money than what you're advertising for. And they'll say, oh, that extra money is for the mover or taxes, or oops, I made a mistake. Can you send that money to X place? Well, that check will come back as fraudulent. Your bank will let you know that's no good, and now you have to pay the bank back some money. So that's not a great experience. Okay, Elaine, I'm going to turn it over to you for your expertise.
In this slide here, it's some of the hows of our current landscape, and it's many of what Taryn has also mentioned as well. We have this, and often it'll be one thing that happens that keeps you away from your money, but it could also be a couple of different things in here. Because a lot of times what fraudsters are trying to do is they're just trying to gain a little bit of information about you. And then they get that information, and then they're able to get a little more information. And we put a lot of ourselves out there. Anyone on Facebook, anyone on LinkedIn, you have stuff out there. If you're in the local paper, there is stuff. And it's enough that they can maybe glean to even go back to in the time of the registry when it used to take our social security numbers, to find enough information about us. But we have the call spoofing and the social engineering, and that's where finding a little more information about us so they can try to call your bank and say, I'm so-and-so, I need my password reset. Well, you hope that the institutions that you deal with have procedures in place so that they will not just randomly go, oh, okay, here, let me give you a new password, and it's password. This way, they're going to ask for some questions that you would probably be the only one who knows. And also, I know for us at Cape Cod 5, we also have a special question, which won't show up anywhere else that often our call center will ask if you've put that into place. The phishing and the smishing is the text messaging. There is the wide phishing emails that just get sent out to a ton of people. Then there's also spear phishing, which is really directing an email to you. It might be that it's found a friend of yours and they have their contact list, so then they start sending emails directly to you, so you really think it's from you. Also, the same as what Taryn was saying about phone numbers, being able to say the phone number belongs to someone who it doesn't, you can do the same thing with email. That name, Elaine Mason, or whatever name you're using, that can be changed. The email address itself can't be changed. And often if you're in question, that's what you have to look for. Social media, as I said, LinkedIn, Facebook. We provide a wealth of information. Often if you are on Facebook and you might see your friends say, oh, I've been hacked. Well, they really haven't been hacked. What's happened is they have their friends list exposed. So someone has gone ahead, taken a copy of their picture, because you can download everything, and then they've just sent out a new friend request to all the friends that you have. So when you do get those friends requests and you know that just doesn't seem right because you already have 3 friend requests from them, you might want to check with them to make sure that, did they really send it? Pop-ups, yes, especially. Those will happen, and sometimes they happen when people might be in our bank accounts. So you think it's coming from the bank, but it's not. There's all these little messages that come through. If you have good virus protection, that can sometimes protect you, or firewall software, but sometimes it doesn't. Those can just they just come through using the regular protocols, so it's good being used for evil. It's evil, yes, that's how it goes. And they're using a regular thing that's available. But as Taryn said, if somebody does call you, no one is going to ask you for your social security number, your passwords, access to anything. Not the FBI, not the Orleans police, not the Eastham police, even if he tells you he's going to, or your social security. Don't. I think
you covered it.
yes. I think I got all of them.
You did.
Oh, so now, what used to happen, and it used to be called CEO, Chief Executive Officer, or President emails, business email compromise. But what happens in this diagram is the fraudster sends in an email that looks good, or it looks intriguing, or there's something about it because it's so easy to copy pictures and things from the internet to pretend that they are a vendor or somebody else. And so you're not thinking, and you click on it. Well, that email may put some type of it might put something on your computer, it downloads a link, or sometimes it even will take you to like Gmail or DocuSign saying, oh, we have this document that we need you to sign. And what they're doing is it looks just like DocuSign, and when you put in your email and your password, you've just given someone your email and your password. One of our recommendations, which I'll tell you ahead of time right now, is it's better to not use the same password for every single site that you go to. So, okay, so now you've ended up having something on your machine that you shouldn't have, and you've given them your username and your password, or you've opened that attachment which loads the malware. So the fraudster then is able to gain access to your email, and a lot of times they're going to be able to send emails out to all of your contacts, or worse, they might find out that you do ACH or wire transfers. They're going to go ahead and try to do a transfer to, obviously, a new bank, because you've now changed your bank, even though you really haven't. But that's, a lot of times, the majority of the situations that happen, TJ Maxx, I know I'm going back a few years on that one, any of the others have all started from someone clicking on an email. They were trying to be helpful, or they weren't doing their work and they were trying to do something that looked really fun, and it wasn't. What you have to do when this does happen is you are going to have to get your machine cleaned. At the bank, my department, Information Security, works really closely with our technology department and Taryn's. And we have this process that if an email comes in and it doesn't look quite right, we check to see if it's a customer or a commercial customer. Their email address then is we block it until they can prove that their computer is cleaned. And it's unfortunate and it can be troublesome, but we are sometimes the only reason that they know that this has happened. Just as if you get that email asking for bank cards or asking for iPod or Apple gift cards, you need to call your friend. Don't reply back by email, and definitely don't buy them. So we are going to protect your devices. We are going to mention a few things for protecting your devices. One of this, you've probably never heard this one before, but keep your software up to date. And although it might work for you to be in a in an operating system that's no longer supported, it is better to be using the newer releases of the software. So, and that also includes any office-type programs that you use as well. So by protecting your devices and also protecting yourself online, one of the recommendations, or something that we recommend now, especially because of data plans with our phones, is it's great that you could go somewhere and be able to be on their wireless at a coffee shop or something, but you're really better using your own phone's data, or if you have a data plan on your laptop, and just connecting to your phone. Because I know, like with a lot of the phones, that will also have VPN in it, a virtual private network, so that you cannot get hacked. Being in a coffee shop or being somewhere where you don't know what the wireless setup is, that is a good reason of where you can have an issue. So a couple of the other things for protecting yourself when you're online. Multi-factor authentication, that's MFA. That means that you have your username, you have a password, and the multi-part is something else that you might have that someone else doesn't have. So even if someone got your password, you would set up multi-factor authentication, and that would be usually on your phone, and you would get a text message with a special code, or you'd get something to say, "Are you logging in?" Those are things that you really should use. It's an extra step, but it's really well worth it. Setting up any type of notifications through for your credit cards, for your banking, that lets you know when you have done something, that is going to be really helpful. Now, because we're suggesting that you use a really long password, like 14 or 15 characters long, not a dictionary word, think about that. Key phrases can work out, so you could say, you could have your favorite song line. You could take the first letter from the song, and if you have an E, maybe you make it into a number 3. Use some upper and lower case. Also, there's password vaults. We use one at the bank, so I don't even really know what my passwords are, but there's password vaults. It's almost like saving your passwords in the browser, but instead you're saving it into an application that has zero knowledge. That means you have to remember your master password, but all those other passwords you can just click and they will be entered into the program that you're using.
So the only other thing I wanted to mention online when you are potentially online shopping, or again, you're reading that newspaper article, is sometimes you'll see advertisements embedded, right? If there's something interesting for you that you would otherwise want to click, please don't click on any advertisement on just some random website. Those advertisements are not vetted by the website, and so that could have malware or some other bad stuff. So I'm just going to use an example. Maybe it's Nordstrom sale, okay? Go to a search engine that you otherwise trust and type in Nordstrom and go that way. Please don't click on the advertisement. That prompted Elaine.
It prompted me to, when you're in Facebook, do not answer any of those survey questions. It doesn't matter what your favorite band at the Cape Cod Coliseum was. Only talk to your friends.
Thank you. And again, that's because that's a way the fraudsters gathering more information about you so they can more specifically target you in those email and call campaigns, right? Okay, so just a couple more points on this slide. So protect your documents. So fraudsters are opportunists. We've spent a lot of time talking about protecting yourself online, but if you still get paper statements or you get anything in the mail, those are a fraudster's dream, and if they grab those out of your mailbox before you get to them, they have a lot of information. So if you do get personal statements with personal information, please shred them when you don't need them anymore, okay? The other thing is please protect your credit. So are many of you familiar with the fact you can put a security freeze on your credit report? Okay, I have a couple nods. For the rest of you that may not know, so there are three major credit bureaus, okay? TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. We have this, I believe, on the handout that we'll share. And what you can do is online, you can go to each of these three sites and ask that your credit be frozen. That means a fraudster or anyone else that might have gathered some information, or at least enough that they could potentially apply for credit in your name, aren't able to do that, okay? Highly recommend it. It's free. And you can also, if you do need to apply for credit, which would include maybe a cell phone or insurance where they have to check to make sure you're worthy from a credit standpoint, you can release it online, and they have to release that freeze within 1 hour. I've done it myself. I've placed it. I've removed it. Super easy. Best protection I can recommend, and it's free, okay? For those of you with young people in your lives, you can place a security freeze for anyone that is under 16. I highly recommend that, because if you think about it, those individuals aren't applying for credit until maybe high school, their first credit card, or college. In that time, the fraudsters may well have done a world of hurt to that young person's credit, okay? So again, anyone under the age of 16, you can go ahead if you're a parent or guardian and place that freeze. The other thing in the top right here in corner here, the United States Postal Service has a great service. It's called Informed Delivery. Anyone heard of Informed Delivery? Couple of hands, okay. So for the rest of you, this is where you get an email every day with a picture of every piece of mail that's coming to your mailbox or post office. This is wonderful, just number one, so you know if there's any lost or stolen mail, so you can file that with the post office. But also, once you register, the fraudster cannot register. So think about this. This happened about 5-6 years ago. We had some rampant theft of credit cards in mailboxes. So the fraudster would have all of your information, apply for a credit card in your name, have it delivered to your home, sign up for informed delivery, see it was going to be delivered, and go steal it out of your mailbox before you even knew what hit you. Then you would obviously check your credit and say, oh gosh, what's happening here? I didn't take out $10,000 in debt. So again, even if you don't necessarily want to receive that email, it's a good defense mechanism so no one can sign up as you. And that's also free. Okay? A lot of these tools are free. What was that called? It's called Informed Delivery from the United States Postal Service. I love it. Okay, so I think we've pretty much hit these. And I want to make sure that Rick has enough time to talk about some horror stories. Sorry. Just quickly, I think we touched on some of these, but let's make sure we hit all of them. So protecting your bank accounts. This is near and dear to my heart because, again, we probably get 24 calls a day where we're helping customers remediate fraud and making sure their accounts are safe. We do recommend online banking versus physical statements. Many reasons. First and foremost, you can check it every day or every week, whatever your preference is. If you wait for that physical statement, it could be 45 days beyond the transaction date. And by then, you could have had a lot of unfortunate things happen with your accounts. We also recommend electronic bill pay versus physical checks, okay? If you think about it, those physical checks have your account number and routing number right on the bottom. You're giving away the keys to the kingdom there, right? And you may have heard, but we've had a rash of phishing with an F. This time I'm going to call it phishing with an F, out of those big blue USPS post office the standalone post office boxes where fraudsters would steal mail out of there in the middle of the night, find those pieces of mail that had checks, wash it, and then present it at a different bank, oftentimes for thousands of dollars more than what you wrote the check for. Now, of course, you're protected, so when you contact the bank in a timely manner, you are protected, but still, you don't want your information out there. So highly encourage electronic bill pay. As Elaine mentioned, every bank offers, and credit card companies too, transaction and balance alerts. I sign up for them. It's a nice reassurance that, if you get an alert saying, your balance is X amount, and you say, wait a minute, I didn't do any transactions this month. That is a way for you to make sure you're logging in and checking to make sure those are legitimate transactions. I cannot stress this bullet point enough. Never, please, ever, ever, ever share your online banking credentials. I have half a dozen reports of people sharing their online credentials a day, okay? If you give them your online banking credentials, those become authorized transactions. The bank is not obligated to make you whole for anything that happens, okay? The bank will never call and ask you for your credentials. The government will never call and ask you for your credentials. I know Elaine mentioned this, but it's so important. I must reiterate that, okay? Please don't ever give out your credentials. We mentioned public Wi-Fi is not secure, so please do use your data or a secured Wi-Fi or VPN network for anything you're logging into. That could be your bank accounts. It could also be maybe your online shopping account, right? Through, again, Nordstrom's or Amazon, wherever you shop. Anytime you're putting in a password, please do not be using public Wi-Fi, okay? And then the last reminder here is on P2P. So we mean person-to-person payments. So this is Zelle or Cash App or Venmo. Is anyone familiar with these, where you can send that money almost instantaneously? They're wonderful and convenient. However, once the money is gone, it's gone. So, use it with caution. We would recommend you only ever use these services to send money to people you've already met and know. So I stress people you've already met. We have a lot of complaints of people that maybe have purchased concert tickets or something online. They send off the money. They've never met the person that's supposedly going to provide them with the goods, and of course they don't arrive. And there's nothing we can do to help you on that, okay? So that really, these services are only for people you know and trust, right? Okay, but I also will say, at least in terms of if you're questioning any financial transactions or you're getting some weird calls that relate to your accounts, feel free to come into some of our banking centers or call us, because we do heavy training of our frontline staff and employees to make sure that they can help you in a timely manner. So again, Rick, do you want to come up? I don't want to steal your thunder here because I know you have some good information to share. Just quickly, if you have been scammed, as we said, unplug your computer, contact your financial institution, contact your credit card company. Go ahead and ask them to put a temporary freeze on your accounts until we understand kind of the extent of the compromise. And contact the credit agencies. We talked about placing a security freeze preemptively, but if you have been a victim of identity theft or a scam, you can also put what's called a fraud alert on your credit reports, okay? So we would recommend that. And then we do recommend filing a police report. And you'll say, why? And in fact, you might say, why? Because there's not a lot, oftentimes, our local police are able to help us with. But the key with filing a police report, especially if you've been a victim of identity theft, is you may need to prove the first time you had fraud, okay? Because if that fraudster has sold your information and there are other scams using your information, especially from an insurance and kind of unwinding yourself, you need to prove when your information was first compromised. That's the benefit of that police report. And then we also do recommend identitytheft.gov, which will walk you through how to unwind from identity theft. Okay. So I'm just going to leave the slide up in terms of resources, and I'm going to turn the mic over.
But also just one final thing, sorry. And Taryn reminded me of it because this did happen to my father-in-law. If you're at the bank and you're doing an unusual transaction and the person at the window starts asking you some questions, that's because of the training that we have gone through. We don't want to know all of your business, but we also want to try to protect you and make sure that you're not doing something that could make you lose money.
Thank you, Elaine. That's a really key point. Yes, we do ask a lot of questions sometimes, and it's only because we want to protect you.
My presentation is pretty quick, but I have what prompted me to push for this presentation, even if one person showed up, is a recent scam that happened in town that involved a massive six-figure amount. I did receive permission from this individual to at least tell a generic version of the story, which I'll get into in a little bit. But for now, let me just go through a few slides. Clicker, or I'll just use the arrow. Here we go. Mine. Oh, you just can't give it up, can you? All right, so on my end of it, on the police end of it, what we find a lot of the times is it's either to obtain money, these scams, or to obtain your ID or your information, right? So what is identity theft? Is someone will steal your personal information. That could be your, whatever their missing link is to either apply for a credit card or a loan or to get whatever else is that they want. So they'll typically go for name, address, social security, maybe a cell phone and or an email. Usually with that alone, they're able to start applying for stuff, and then also, to gain more. The reason this is such a problem is they'll then go and apply, and if they do apply and you don't check on your accounts, the amount of money that could be taken out pretty quickly. So does anyone here or everyone here do online banking? I know she had mentioned earlier. Do most of us do online banking? Okay, so I can tell you, I check my online accounts every day, probably even 2 or 3 times a day, just because I'm heavy on the Amazon, like a true millennial. But I will tell you that during morning coffee, I check my accounts. Maybe later in the afternoon, if I know that things are coming in and out or I have bills on auto pay, they come in and out. Everyone has their own way. I don't do auto pay because I like to know when I'm paying my bills. I know that it went that day. I did it. Now, that's just me. I'm not telling you that you have to do that. There's nothing wrong with auto pay. That's just one thing that I do, so I know when things are paid. If you do have auto pay, make sure you allow notifications. So when something is paid, if you happen to forget that it was the 15th of the month for whatever bill, at least you'll be notified. You want to stay up on your accounts, because what can happen is if you had missed a fraudulent activity on your computer and then sometime later you didn't notice it, but it's now been a month or 2 or whatever, it may be too late to even handle that. Even with a police report, I'll still make note of it, but it may be too late to do anything about it. So they will steal your information. How would they steal your information? Well, one thing is, it happened a while ago, but someone was going through mailboxes and taking envelopes and letters and anything that may have your personal information on it. So if everyone doesn't have a P.O. box and you have your mail delivered to your house and you're going to go on a vacation, if you don't already, maybe tell the post office you're going on vacation, or have someone that you trust or have a family member, but don't let your mail pile up at your house. Because if and when it does, someone might come by and swindle it. Some of your mail probably has a lot of personal information on it. Now, that is sort of the trend to keep things electronic because there's no paper in the mailbox. However, obviously we have malware and all these other things, right, which is just as scary on that end. So there's no right or wrong answer. If you're more of a paper person than you are electronic, that's fine, but just don't let your mail pile up because it is subject to being possibly stolen. It's unfortunate, but it is the world that we live in. The Cape Cod is much safer than where I came from, but don't think that things don't happen down here. I think we all have experienced or seen in the neighborhoods, even walking your cars, right? We've heard of that. That's happened over the last year or 2, right? So much is the same with mail. I think the last line I'm going to save, I have 2 or 3 stories I'm going to give you about how they may get into your accounts. So protect your identity and your money. Let me give 2 points of interest. 1, the police department, the feds in any capacity, or any other law enforcement agency will never, ever ask you for gift cards, for checks, or for any other form of payment, ever. We don't need your money. We don't want your money. It's not even part of the equation. It is not. So if you ever hear of anyone asking for money, it is wrong. So let me give you a story. At one of the police departments I was employed by, someone got scammed. One of the scams came from Facebook. Who here has a Facebook if you choose to say so? Does everyone have their Facebook private? You went to settings, et cetera, and you have it extremely private and secure? Does anyone not know how to do it? It's okay if you don't. Okay, make note of it. I don't know, does the library have services where they can help assist with that?
They have one-on-one appointments with folks that help them, I think, raise and we'll refer them to somebody else if we cannot help.
Awesome. Take advantage of that if you don't know how to do it. Let me tell you how this scam happened, because this one was one of the first scams I was actually involved in as a police officer. The scammer went on that person's Facebook. How they chose them, I don't know. I assume it was just a random act. They went to their information, your bio, and there a lot of people will list, oh, I grew up here, here's my phone number, here's my email address, here's my third cousin, here's my aunt, here's my best friend, here's my significant other, la, 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 la. Well, they found a niece. Ooh, that niece is in Carolina, let's say, in college. So they then called that person because their phone number was listed on their Facebook account, and they called and said, hey, Mary Ann, your niece was arrested over the weekend for drunk and disorderly. She goes to college, right? This is your niece, and this is the college she's attending? Yes, yes. Well, she was arrested, and in order to get her out on bail, okay, we're allowing this one phone call. We'll connect with her shortly. We need $500 to release on bail. What did this person do? Instantly transferred $500 and wire transferred right down there because she was wanted to help her niece, right? Don't be helpful. Right? Don't be helpful. She gave $500. Then they called back. They said, hey, that's great. She's being released. There's a processing fee. This is now it should have already rang the bell, right? There's a processing fee. If you'll just give us the next, don't quote me, but it was around $5,000 for the processing fee, and then she'll be all set, and then she'll call you. So what do? They gave them the processing fee, all right? Then on the third call, hey, she's out, she's processed, we need one more fee, and then now she went, wait, this doesn't sound right. Then she called us. What happens when I get there? I'm really sorry, you're SOL. I can't get that money back for you. I will make you a police report. I'll do everything I can. You can talk to the bank. But there's really nothing on a police end of it that I can do. Unfortunately, in the town of Eastham, even if I can track down the person that did that, right, and I can get that exact person and where they're from, and it's probably been pinged 7 different times to a different computer, with a 16-man police department or officer police department, we don't have the funding or the personnel to send me out of state to effectuate an arrest on that crime. So they were out $6-7 grand for that mistake. Now, can you see how scams can start not just with too much mail in your mailbox? It could start with having your Facebook so glaringly open that I can get information and go for there. Now, I think what happens is you get duped, and then later on you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that mistake. Well, it's happened to many people, lots of people. So here's another example. And I like to give a lot of examples for my presentation because I want you guys to hear the common trends that are going on. That Facebook one, I've only seen that a couple of times, maybe like 2. But that's a pretty scary one. So take from this, if you were writing something down, make sure your Facebook is private and secure. It's not open to the public. There's settings where it says only my friends can see stuff, right? You want to make sure you have that. That's a big one, okay? Because Facebook has a ton of information on it, and I feel like it's pretty intuitive for all kinds of generations that are on the computer and the internet, right? I feel like most people have it, as opposed to Instagram and TikTok and all this other stuff. As far as any other phone calls, the big thing I wanted to take away from this slide was that law enforcement will never call and ask you for money, all right? The last thing I think I'll mention, and they had said it, and I can't say how important this is, there is no reason ever to get gift cards for anything, period. Period, 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 period. There is no one or no business. Would you ever pay your doctor in a gift card? Seriously, come on. Would you ever pay your doctor in a gift card? No, right? My wife is not gonna, repair the shoulder or something and then be like, oh, give me 2 Target gift cards for $1,000. And that's, there's your copay. Like, get real, right? Like, let's make a joke of it for a second. There's no reason to ever have gift cards. So no matter what happens on your phone call, if you're getting scammed, do not go get gift cards. Do not get gift cards. The only time you should ever get a gift card is maybe for a relative, because you can't, there's no other Christmas or holiday present that you can think of that's appropriate, so maybe we'll do a gift card. That's fine, but don't ever do them for any form of a payment. Okay, I think some of this stuff, I'll go sideways. I think some of this stuff is probably repetitious from theirs, but read your bank and credit card statements. Look for charges you did not make. So I'm not kidding. I wake up every day and have coffee. I'm high energy, so you might have to slow me down too. I go through 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee a day. I tend to work nights and have a lot of hobbies. So morning coffee, I check my bank accounts online real quick. It takes all of a few seconds. And I'll even do it at the end of the day. I really kind of encourage you to do that. You may not even know you got scammed. You may have clicked on an email and you have no idea that someone's going through your accounts, right? But you would know because you'll see faulty charges on your credit cards or your. Yep. Let me give you another example. Did anyone get the unemployment scam last year? Did anyone see these letters going around town? It was all over town. It's okay if you didn't, but so they were sending out a letter during COVID that was asking for saying that you needed to finish filing for unemployment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You had to call the number, give your information, your name, your social security, to finish filing for unemployment. Maybe some people were actually filing, maybe some people weren't, and we were hit pretty hard with a lot of those claims. And then they were hitting their bank accounts and everything else. I don't know if the bank did you guys see this one? It was obnoxious. I'm sorry? COVID brought up a ton of scams because now people are home on the computer, so the scammers were hitting it heavy. That was a very popular scam. That to be said, I'm going to come back and talk about that again in scams in like another slide or so. This was already mentioned, but there's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So just remember that last slide that she said that you can keep up on that. I'm not really going to add much more to that because they hit it very, very well. So the warning signs is what we talked about before on your accounts. So on your banking accounts and your credit cards, however many or little that you have, I would, again, I stress this one a lot, is checking your accounts daily. It's kind of like your mail. If you let your mail pile up for a week or two, it's subject to someone grabbing a letter or two with some personal information on it. The same with your accounts. If you don't check your accounts for a month or two, and it is a victim of a scam, more than likely we're not going to be able to get it back anyway. But the sooner you're on top of it, the more likely the bank and or us are going to be able to help you. So on sort of more my end, all right. So I was the victim of a scam. What can I do or what should I do? So take note of what documentation, information, and money was involved. So a lot of times what happens is the panic settles in. I was just scammed. I just lost X amount of money. Or I was just given this information. So by all means, run to the police station and come talk to me. But what's helpful is if you know exactly what was taken and when. If you're not sure, we'll figure it out. But it's helpful and it helps the report go quicker if I know I had this much money taken, it's this account, here's a printout of what I have, here's everything that I have. Not that I won't go looking in to do everything to help you. It's just, it makes it quicker and easier for us if I know what we're looking into. Not, I was scammed, I have no idea what happened. Okay, well, we need to go through your accounts. We need to find out what was hit, what was taken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did you give just your first name and last name? You didn't give your social security, you didn't give your address. They just asked your name, you said your name, it sounded like a scam, I hung up. Then that's great. And I'll probably tell you, I'm not even going to make a report because they can have your name all they want it. They can get it on Google. It doesn't matter. Your social security and the rest of your information is what matters. So after we have that, I want you to call or just come to the station. We are open 24/7. So here's one thing that I would say, and this would sort of be at its base, right? So what are the area codes around here that you would see the most? 508, 617, 781, 774, maybe Connecticut, was it 603? Those are all area codes that we all recognize, right? We're all very familiar with those right away. If you see 803, does that sound like a local person trying to call you? No. Does it seem or sort of sound like BS, right? All right, so don't answer it. If it's that important, like the police department, we'll call you back. And quite honestly, actually, if it's the police department or anyone federal law enforcement, I'm just going to come to your house in uniform, and I'm gonna address it that way. I may try a phone call if I have your phone number in the system, but if I don't, I'm just coming to your house anyway. So if you're that nervous, even if I call and you think it's a scam and you hang up, I might be like, oh, but I'm just going to come to your house and talk to you that way. So that's fine, and I would never be mad at that if you're that nervous. Okay, so. One, I would pay attention to area codes that are calling you. Same with an email. If, what tends to happen is if you go on a couple websites, or you sign up and buy Yankee, you buy a Yankee candle online. All of a sudden, you're getting Yankee Candle every other week. Hey, look, there's another coupon today. Like, right. I went to Nordstrom and I bought a jacket. Now there's a coupon tomorrow. Like, as soon as you start buying stuff, you're just going to get inundated with emails and coupons and sales and all that stuff. If you don't know and you're not sure, don't click on it. Don't click on anything in the email. Delete it. Just get rid of it. What you can do is verify, right? So I want you to verify the email. If you don't know and you don't trust it, just delete it. And it could be a good email. It might not be a scammer or a phishing email. It could be a good one. But how could you check it? So for example, let's say you get an email from, I don't know, Ace Hardware. And it says, huge sale tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Click here for the sale coupon and whatnot, right? And you're like, not really sure what to do here. What could we do? Well, you could delete it. You could call Brad down at Ace Hardware and be like, hey, Brad, are we having a sale tomorrow? Because I got an email for a coupon. Is that true? Or if you're going there anyway today, hey, Brad, you having a sale tomorrow? Or call them. Yeah, that's how you verify it, right? And if it's true and you call, I'm sure most local business, the benefit of living on the Cape is most local businesses will honor it anyway. They'll be like, yeah, we're having a sale tomorrow, no problem. Come on in, we'll take care of it. So don't click on anything if you're not sure. Going back to this, after you come talk to me or one of my compadres, what you do is you want to then notify the bank. Typically what we'll do is we'll make a report for you. It's a 1 to 2 page report. It'll mention sort of your information, what was targeted, what you're the victim of specifically, and then we sort of release that for you, and then you'll take it to the bank. A lot of times from there, if the bank is able and helpful enough to secure your money back and you're all set, it kind of ends with us at that point. Typically when it's a larger scam, on a bigger scale, we get much more heavily involved, trying to get documents and subpoenaing records and all that stuff I'll get into in a minute. But typically we usually send you with that initial report to the bank so you can try to secure if your funds were hit, trying to get your funds back. If your identification was taken, I will tell you to do a whole list of things. It'll usually be, I will make a report. I don't have the number. I can get it back to you, or maybe I can find out at the end of the presentation, and I'll make sure you get it down because it changed twice over. But there's a number you call to report that your ID was hit. You need to report that to the federal government. I only really initially make a documentation of it, but I don't bring it to the federal level. Even with scams, I have to bring it to the federal level, which I'll get into in another second. So just make sure that after with us, you follow through with the bank, and then you follow through with the feds if it's ID. If it's just money, you'll just follow through with the bank. All right, so before I go into mine, has anyone here been the victim of a scam? You don't have to say if you don't want to. That you would like to share, or at least sort of tell me? Or has no one been a victim? Really? I'll start back there. Were you a victim of a scam?
I received an email in my capacity as library director from someone I knew to be a library patron asking if I would buy Amazon gift cards for them. So I reported the email as spam in my inbox, and I made a separate call to the patron to make sure that they were aware of the situation. So yeah, kind of ended there.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay. So I'm sorry, one, two, I was just trying to get a head count. 3, 4? So, what's that? The one that you talked about earlier? Okay, all right. So holding those, do you see how it's pretty commonplace, right? They will attack, trying to get anyone. What will typically happen is they will just keep sending them out. Now, some people will say, I can't, why they try, it's unbelievable that they try so hard and this and that and et cetera. Well, let me put it to you like this. If a scammer spends 9 or 10 hours today to try to scam someone, right, and they scam them for $10,000 or $2,000, that's my week's paycheck, the $2,000 one. So that's a great payday for a scammer if they made it in 8 or 9 hours, because I'm definitely not making that, all right? So that's That's why they try so hard. That's a great payday. Do that a couple times a month, and they're pretty well off. So that's why they employed it to do it so much and so heavy. All they got to do is get a couple, and they're living it up. So I want to sort of end with a few different more incidents that have happened. I only really have like 1 or 2 left, and then I'll kind of wrap it up so you guys aren't here too long. Told you about the Facebook scam, right? That was a good one because it didn't even dawn on her until after we went through it all, and I was like, "Can I see your Facebook?" So I didn't want to single anyone out here, but an exercise I would normally do is I'd ask if anyone has a Facebook, and I would ask for your name, and I would look it up on my phone, and I would go, "Oh, look, this is your family. Oh, look, this is that, whatever." Now, that may or may not work because some of you actually have it privatized and secure, but some don't. And there's nothing wrong with that if you don't want to. I'm not telling you you have to, but I strongly encourage you that you do because that was that scam was hit very heavily. So I would make an appointment if you're not sure how to do it with the library and learn how to make that private or secure, or have some grandsons or granddaughters help to do so. Big thing to take away today is no gift cards ever. There's no reason to buy gift cards for payment on anything except for a holiday present, maybe to a niece, nephew, grandson, granddaughter, whatever. But that's it. There's no one that's going to take payment in gift cards. I'm not sure why it works so well, to be honest with you, but I think in the age of technology and how fast things are moving, I mean, even I have trouble keeping up, so don't feel so either falling behind or not, because things are moving so fast right now. I mean, they're talking about electric cars and all this other stuff. Things are moving quick, so just try to keep up as you can. The big one I wanted to talk about, now it's a subjective dollar amount to whether or not this is a lot to you. To me, that is a load. So I had someone scammed in town for that dollar amount right there. Yeah, that right there. So let's all stare at that number for a second, because that will pretty much buy my house. So yeah, definitely my house. So see that? That's how much scams can go into, right there. Let me tell you how it happened. This will be pretty much my final story, and then questions for any of us, and we'll probably get going. That right there all started with an email that was unknown. It doesn't matter, but it was probably like a department store or something like that. It was probably more something like Microsoft sent an email that said, "Hey, your antivirus is out of date or needs to be renewed for subscription." So this specific person clicked on the email. Another pop-up came up and said, "Call this number. You need to call this number in order to release the computer because it's hacked." The victim said, "No problem, what do I do?" The Microsoft team who was helping him said, "You need to go to the CVS in Orleans, and you need to get 2 gift cards worth $500 each." Now, right there, if this person had attended my presentation, they would have known that you would never buy gift cards to pay for anything. But they didn't, so they went and got 2 gift cards, and what they did is they don't even need the gift card. What do they need? It's just like a credit card. They just need the number. They after they activated them, they flipped it over, they gave them the 2 numbers, boom, that scammer just got $1,000 worth of Target or whatever it else. It doesn't matter what they bought, but they just got $1,000 worth of goods or gas points or whatever, right? So that worked right away. This victim then said, "Great, my computer should be all set," right? They clicked on it, they had malware, everything was on, the computer was locked. What happens next? They call again about an hour later. "Hey, we're trying to release the computer. We need funds. In order to do it, we need you to do a direct wire transfer to release. That'll pay Microsoft for your subscription, okay? And we will then release it." Now, this is where this person may or may not have suffered from some forgetfulness, unfortunately, as this person was much, much older. However, they did a wire transfer for something like $50-something thousand. wire transfer, instant. Now, the bank may help me out because I only know really more of the policing end of it, but they did the direct wire transfer, okay? It was not Cape Cod 5, by the way, because I had a discussion with the bank about this after. That wire transfer went through. The next day, that same person went back. So over the course of 3 days, they did 3 wire transfers, right, as the scam continued. So 3 different wire transfers, it doesn't matter, equaling that amount. That includes gift cards, so it was 182-ish thousand before gift cards. So what happened is, after 5 days of getting scammed, that person comes to the station, like, I think I'm getting scammed. Yup. And I am so sorry. It was my case. I was like, I am so sorry. There's not much I can do. And I did all that. My lieutenant and I worked very closely together. I did reports, paperwork, trying to get records. I found out possible suspect who is nowhere near this side of the country. I started tracking things down. I can only get so far before I start hitting a kind of a dead end. Not to mention, unfortunately, we just don't have the personnel or the funding. But trying to find this person through their account, and just because their account is here doesn't mean that that person is there. That person could have went to a Wi-Fi hotspot at a Starbucks, doing it from there, and then bounced. And I mean, the way this can pinball is crazy. So all that being said, now the unfortunate part is I reported this to the feds, and I tried to work with the FBI. What I can really sort of say is there's a certain delinear amount before the FBI gets heavily involved and will take on the case to go forward. And that's not it. Now, that's not a hit on them because they're inundated with this amount of work. So they have a certain amount before that you have to hit before they can get involved and continue going forward with the case, because they have so many cases. So just to tell you, that doesn't even qualify, which is crazy. So just to tell you how rampant scams are, okay, and we can only help so much. I think the biggest way to help a lot of the town is presentations like this. At some point, I might even do a video to post on the police department's Facebook page or something like that, if I can make one shorter, just so people could sort of have an idea of what's going on with scams. I also am not up to date on every single scam coming out. They'll do a scam, it'll run great, like the unemployment one. That was actually high five to that person, because that was actually a great scam, and they hit so many people. The next one, I don't know what it'll be. I have no idea. As far as the bank end on it, what would behoove you is to make sure you're checking your accounts all the time. Now, obviously, this person single-handedly did that wire transfer directly, but what if they didn't? They got the information, and that transfer was done because they had the information. In that scenario, if you were checking your accounts every day, you would notice it and be able to handle it right away. Anyway, so that was the big one to tell you, and that's how common it can be. That's not the only scam I've had in town. By no means is that the last scam, unfortunately, that I'm probably going to have to deal with. But I just think that if all you sort of take away from today, the important factoids that are very common in scams, which would be gift cards, clicking on emails that you don't know, or giving information over the phone. Those are probably the 3 biggest ones. If you don't know, then you don't know. If you don't know the phone number, then you don't know them. Don't be helpful. I actually like that. Don't be helpful. Do not. Be selfish. Keep your information to you. Don't give out money. You don't need to. If someone needs it, you'll see them in person. And the big thing is verify. So if you're curious about a coupon or something in an email, verify it. Go to the store, hang up the phone, find out the actual number in the yellow pages. I was gonna say, or you could ask Siri, but or ask Siri the number for the business. Call the business and make sure that's a legitimate email. If you're actually curious, because it's a good sale. I can tell you, if it's too good to be true, right, right. If it's too good to be true, it is. All right. I will end there. I have nothing more to add. I hope that was helpful. No gift cards. Verify anything that you're not sure of. Okay. And don't give out any information ever. Thank you.